Hello, this is Pastor Micah from Life's Journey United Church of Christ. Just sharing our midweek reflection for the week. And as you might remember, we have been looking during our midweek reflections on lessons from Jesus's Beatitudes, which is a short section in Matthew 5 in which Jesus describes the attitudes of heart we need to be ones who positively impact our world, lighting up the darkness and adding healing to whatever is broken. We've come to blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. As I read this quote tonight, I am reminded of a book study that I shared with some of you that I'm going through right now with some fellow ministers, inspired by the way in which the coronavirus has made really clear to us in our country over race and over class, as well as slowed us down enough as a nation to notice the violence so many people of color are facing. I and some of my colleagues have begun to meet every few weeks discussing Ibram Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. The heart of what Kendi describes in his book are the ways in which racist ideas, which were present at the founding of our country, are insidious and creep into our hearts and lives if we are not careful. He demonstrates this not just by telling stories of white men like myself, who may walk into a store and have a knee-jerk reaction, assumption about people on levels we would not normally notice about the color of their skin, such as reacting differently to see a young black man walking in a store in a hoodie than a young white man. In addition to talking about these, he also shares ways in which similarly racist ideas and reactions shaped him even as he grew up as a young black man. A man who was raised by a set of parents who held to the ideals of the civil rights movement. In one particularly thought-provoking speech at the beginning of his book, a thought-provoking example at the beginning of his book, Kendi shares how embarrassed he is today to look back and remember one of his earliest speeches, a speech he gave at a speech contest celebrating the life and the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Looking back now, Kendi sees how in that speech, though he meant well, he tossed out all kinds of racist caricatures and stereotypes of his own classmates and neighbors, left and right in the speech, all in the interest of, in his mind, challenging them to work hard, to education, to family values. His point in sharing this example is how easily we can unknowingly buy into and repeat stereotypes ourselves of others as lazy, as ignorant, as uncaring about their families or their communities, which are the stereotypes he presented about his neighbor, his classmates of color. We can end up doing this all without realizing it. But in so doing, say and do things individually and also as a part of our public policy as a community, as a nation, in ways that bring harm. Now, Kendi's point is the same as Jesus's point by saying, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. It is our hearts, more than our eyes that are often our lenses through which we see the world. Far too often, they are like spectacles, but not ones that we can see more clearly through, but ones that we have on that have become scratched or coated with mud. Or tarnished so that they are difficult to look through because of us unknowingly having swallowed prejudices against others or even against ourselves in the group we are part. That's happened to Kenty. This is a part of why it can be so hard to convince some folks that racial injustice exists in housing or policing, even though we could put in front of their eyes all the evidence. It is why some can't admit that our climate is changing, despite all the evidence we could put in front of their eyes to the contrary. I mean, to prove, right, that is the case. While our hearts are closed to others' experiences or points of view, or to facts that go against our prejudices, it is easy to just dig in our heels and refuse to admit we're right about everything, that we could be wrong. When that happens, we cannot see because we have closed our eyes of our heart. In order to see others as they truly are, in order to see our world as it truly is, we need to let go of our prejudices and invite God and others to join in cleansing our hearts. This is a part of why we have a centering moment each Sunday at church, where you can ask God to open your heart and name ways, or ask God to show you ways your heart's closed. This is why I challenge you all to be involved regularly in prayer and meditation. Moments to increase your awareness. In prayer and meditation done from the right heart, we invite God to transform our hearts, just as in the centering moments. It's also why I am engaged in learning, together with this cohort at other points, about my own racism, how I can learn to go. Why I would challenge you to do the same about racism, sexism, about any of the prejudices that might be blocking your vision. It is only by exposing those prejudices for what they are that we can purify the lens of our hearts and see our lives, others in our world, for what they are. One of my favorite historical figures is Alan Turing, the mathematician, who I've mentioned before in church. During World War II, in order to crack the code of Nazi Germany, with which they sent their messages of war, Turing developed something akin to an early computer. His brilliant mind cracked the code and turned the tide of the war in Europe. And we're able to do things like this, recorded devotion, like our worship services, email, like how some of you do your jobs every day, even our fancy cell phones and iPads. It's so much more that's a part of our modern life, all because of the work of this one man. And yet, Turing died young and unknown, because after he contributed this, the government of England discovered he was gay. And when they did so, all they could see in him being gay was what they viewed as deviancy, brokenness, perversion. And I'd say it's none of those things. But they thought it was. That's all they could see. So they forced him into painful treatment aimed at making him straight, even though God had made him gay. Treatments that did no such thing. He remained gay to the day he died, but did shorten his life. Turing's story is heartbreaking. And I always wonder when I think about it, as I consider the brilliance done by him in his short life, how much more he might have accomplished to better our world if those around him did not have their hearts muddied by homophobia and heterosexism. I bet you can think of many such examples throughout history in your own lives too, where one kind of prejudice or another held others back. You see, each person we meet, in whatever ways they are similar to us or different, are ones that Psalm 139 tells us were knit together in their mother's wombs, fearfully and wonderfully made by God as gifts, just as they are. Each person carries unique gifts and talents that can make the world more beautiful, more joyful, more life-giving, more just if they and others will embrace those gifts. How many people in history, the past, or today could, like Turing, reflect something amazing and glorious that points us more fully to God, to others, to love, to justice? If only we or they could put away the prejudices that tarnish our soul. The challenge of this virtue brought out by Jesus by saying, "Blessed are the pure, for they shall pure in heart, for they shall see God," is that you and I need to let our hearts be changed by removing these blinders. If we do so, we are told by Jesus that we will see God more and more clearly. We will see God because God dwells not just high up in heaven or not in some building that we have set apart like a church or a temple or a synagogue or a mosque, but God dwells in every person, in every circumstance, in every place, in every living thing on earth. As Richard Rohr once wrote, we cannot attain the presence of God because we're already totally in the presence of God. What is absent is awareness. I want to challenge you to join me in this journey of removing the blinders, wiping away the mud of prejudice in your own heart so you can see God more clearly. To close, as an invitation to this, I want to invite you to listen and watch a beautiful video by Peter Mayer that talks of how our vision can be transformed when we remove the blinders and awaken our awareness to God in each person and in all things. I'm going to try to share it with you now. If not, if it doesn't share properly, it is also in the text message I'll be sending out to the church. All right. So let me move it over to the song and for you. Blessings on your week. I hope to see you this Sunday, either on our Zoom worship or Facebook Live. And until then, know that you're in each of my prayers. May you experience heaven's light shining on you this week, all your days.